Hello, everyone, and welcome to Woo Woo. Today's guest is near and dear to my heart, and I've only met you once physically, but
I
it
love
feels
that.
such a kindred connection with you.
Yes.
We have Princess, astrologer, model, actress, to the stars of the star. You are a star.
Amen.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you
Likewise,
for
Ray.
being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me. Appreciate it.
I ran into you when I was exploring. So I'm a big crystal shop guy, and
Yeah.
I started my own online crystal shop, but I like to do like excursions every weekend. I go explore a different crystal shop in a different part of LA,
Yeah.
and I found, is it the House of Intuition?
Yes, House of Intuition.
And yeah, and I discovered you there, and we were talking about rocks, and we were talking about your passion for astrology. Can you tell me more about that? Like, tell me more about what led you
Yeah.
there.
Gosh. So, it's funny. I grew up in a very, very religious home. Very religious home. Um,
Same.
and yeah, hella Christian, God squad, but my
God Squad, I love that.
yeah, I actually don't identify as Christian anymore. More so, I guess, spiritual, right? These days. Um, but my parents had a book called Star Signs by Linda Goodman. Linda Goodman is like an OG in the astrology field. And they just had this book. It's like the astrology Bible, in my opinion, where she broke down each sign and, each type of person who would hold that sign. The typical Scorpio child, the typical Libra boss, the typical Virgo mother, the typical Libra father, and I read this book when I was a child, like maybe 10 years old, if not younger, like So that was my introduction to astrology. And
Can I
I
ask you really quick?
yeah.
Are you good with math naturally?
So it's funny, I'm terrible with arithmetic. I passed all of my math classes with flying colors, but I really like calculus. I can't do simple math, but I love calculus. Why?
Wow.
I don't
Wild.
know.
Well, no, I interviewed an astrology author recently, and
Okay.
he was talking about how arithmetic and being good with it, because he's like one of the OG astrologers, and so
Whoa.
everything he had to do was numbers. And
Yeah.
I was just curious if you were, because that seems like a lot of information to take in as a small child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Astrology to me is very intimidating.
Here's the thing. And here's what informs my approach to astrology these days. I I love psychology. I majored in psychology in undergrad. I almost wanted to be a therapist, but that I kind of changed career paths. But what I love about astrology is just the more psychosocial, relational aspect of it. I love studying people and knowing what makes them tick, you know? So that was what kind of encouraged me to deepen my research into astrology. And naturally, like I said, I grew very Christian, so I actually lost touch with astrology during like my teen years, like late teens and early 20s, and then didn't find myself back in it again after I kind of left the church and started to do some soul searching again. That's when I discovered like houses and degrees, and aspects. So first I came from the very like personality breakdown, which just intrigued me immensely. And then after some time, I discovered the mathematical basis of astrology, which is what I love. And when I rediscovered astrology again in my like early to mid 20s, I, of course, it's very natural to get into that rabbit hole. So that's when I discovered numerology. The two go very well together. One really informs the other, and vice versa. That's when I discovered tarot. Got my first tarot deck, got my first oracle deck. Um, and then, yeah, crystals, like it all kind of works together. So, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I'm glad you explained that, because that's one thing that a lot of newcomers and newbies, or just metaphysical enthusiasts, don't know is that astrologers and astrology is so different from numerology,
Yeah.
and it's different from tarot and divination and psychic and medium. Also,
Yeah.
psychic medium. You know, people always confuse the two. They think if you're a psychic, you're a medium. That's not always the case. If you're medium, you're
True
psychic, but
psychic.
not all psychics
Or
are medium.
mediums, absolutely.
Um, so, do you find yourself, was astrology, you know, you were introduced to it as a child, is that still the one that calls you back? Like, that's your practice and what you feel most comfortable in? Or do you now, are
Yeah.
you like into the divination? Are you a tarot reader? What else do you
Yeah.
do?
So astrology is my home base for sure.
Okay.
Astrology is like a second language to me, you know.
Wow,
And
that's so
I,
cool.
yeah, and I do feel like it kind of like you, like what you were saying. You have like a natural kind of psychic inclination when it comes to astrology. Like you may not know like the definitions of all the, you know, different words and signs, but you can tell Libra Virgo, you know, like
Yeah.
that's kind of how I am too. It just comes so natural and intuitively to me.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Is that I know enough about zodiac
Mm-hmm.
that certain habits of certain signs, elemental energies behind certain signs, and that's how I can kind of figure out, kind of
Yeah.
like with people's age too. And I guess because I'm a makeup
Mm-hmm.
artist, like if I get in somebody's face, I don't care how much filler you've had,
Yeah.
Botox. I can clock. I like cutting a tree in the middle and counting the rings. I can tell you how old you are. And what's worse is when you're really good at it, and people come to you and they expect you like, you know, what's my age? How old? And you know,
Yeah.
but you don't want to say because you're like, girl, you've been working so hard, or
So like,
guy, you've been working so hard. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna tell you what you look like. I know your real age,
yeah.
but I'm gonna guess a couple of years younger. You
There
know,
you
just
go. You're so
to
kind.
throw you a bone.
Well, now you telling me this about yourself, let me ask you, do you have like heavy Capricorn or Saturn prominent in your chart?
I
Yeah.
am a Capricorn.
And you know, so I want you to okay, here's why I guessed that because Saturn rules Capricorn and
Yeah.
Saturn rules time, and you're very good at, you know, time, like what you said, like seeing people's age. You use the word clocking people's ages. You see straight through you know, to the truth. That's Capricorn. That's Saturn, you know, and
I
then like a
love
ton of
that.
other things too. Yeah.
Listen, my bullshit meter is always like
Yeah.
always going, and honestly, the worst part about being a psychic intuitive, I've been training recently with the College of Psychic Studies in the last few years,
Oh.
doing like mediumship and really honing my abilities, not always just to help people, but sometimes to close myself off
Mm-hmm.
and not be so what's the word, like not be so available to pick up things because
Yeah.
and especially working in the entertainment industry,
Mm.
you and I know,
Yeah.
like 80% of what we do, you as an actor, me as somebody who works behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
it's all illusion,
Yeah.
right? We're entertaining, we're working in a business of entertainment, and it's for show and it's illusion. And sometimes people drink their own Kool-Aid and they
Mm-hmm.
start telling you lie after lie after lie, and
Yeah.
I don't think that it's malicious. I think that it's a natural defense mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, if people are struggling, they don't want you to know that they're
Mm-hmm.
struggling, so they put up this whole facade. And when you're an intuitive,
An
grounded
empath.
earth sign,
Yeah. Yeah.
you see right through it and you're like, baby, it's okay. You don't have to lie to me, but I'm not going to call you out. You know, I'm not going to. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where I had to find my line, is just learning how to respect people's space, because sometimes I don't want to know their truth. You
Yeah.
know, I want to know their truth when they want me to know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just walk around like an antenna picking
Mm-hmm.
up people's things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
do you find that working with what you do,
Mm-hmm.
immediately off the bat, you can start picking up like patterns that kind of give you an insight as to who they are? Do you think it's more like astrology based, or is it intuitive based for you? Sorry, I know that was a weird, long way to get to the question, but.
um, I think I think it's both. I think it starts. I think it starts with intuition, but then
Okay.
I'm able to apply it to astrology.
just because I'm newer to meeting astrologers and astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Is astrologer the correct term, by the way, for somebody who
Yes,
practices astrology?
some people say astrologist, and it's like my pet
Ooh.
peeve. I'm
Oh,
pretty
you
sure
don't
it's
like astrologists?
astrologer. I'm pretty sure it's astrologer, but that's just me. Yes, astrologer. Yeah.
Astrologist. I like that. But I prefer astrologer as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Some of the people that I've talked to that are into astrology, they don't embrace the woo of it. They don't embrace the woo woo. They don't embrace the psychic intuition part that might play a role with it. And
Yeah.
I always say it's like, if you're a doctor, you could be an intuitive doctor and an intuitive healer, and but as soon as somebody sits in your chair, your intuition's just lighting up and you're like, we're going to go down this path and this is how I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
I feel like that can be applied, intuition can be applied to any profession. But when it comes to the metaphysical world of professions,
Mm.
some people that I've met that do astrology only do astrology. They don't believe in, which is odd, they don't believe in psychic
Mm-hmm.
phenomena, and so they're
That's
just
so
like,
interesting. I
yeah.
mean, more
and
power to
so
them.
I know, and so that's why I was really asking, is that if you include intuition into
Yeah.
astrology, or if you just do the math and you just do the stars and you just do the astrology aspect of it.
Here's the thing. I think that I feel like I find success in astrology because I pair intuition with it. I think the
Yeah.
two go very well together. Especially for me, I don't really believe in just being full on, just solely astrology with the math and the breakdown, the technical breakdown of it. No, and then just being completely intuitive. Like, I I don't think that really works either. I believe in intuition and having, like that psychic sense help you pick up on things about a person, a client, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely believe in the benefit of having, the parameters of astrology uh, guide you and kind of keep you in check. Like,
Yeah.
intuition is just so, it's so broad, but what I love about astrology is that there are definitions and there's a science to it. Whether you want to argue with that or not, like, there's a science to it, and I believe that science kind of helps, I don't want to say box you in, but it provides those parameters that really, I think it helps the psychic sense flourish. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. 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 I love that. So, one thing that I do kind of notice is that I was trying to explain to my partner, because we were having this whole astrology conversation.
Yeah.
And what I gather is that astrologers are kind of like lawyers. I feel like, like the
Mm.
the written legal jargon is all the same, but a good lawyer can look at it and then convey to their client what the message is, in a way that they can easily understand. Would you kind of fit yourself into that category of just being
Yeah.
able to communicate with your client clearly so that they can understand what the stars and the charts say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that too. You drew that comparison to law. I think lawyers are able, a successful lawyer has a cunning. They can be, uh, they have a craftiness, so they
Yeah.
have
They
used
can
the,
work around the law if they need to.
exactly. And I think that's one thing that people need to realize about astrology. Like, there are certain things about you that caught my attention that made me say you're a Capricorn sun or Capricorn, right? But then
Yeah.
another person who's a Capricorn can, demonstrate an entirely different set of like behaviors or opinions, attitudes that make me say that they're a Capricorn. Like, not all Capricorns are A, B, and C, and that is it. There are some things that a Capricorn does that I'll apply to one person and then a different, other things to a different person. Does that
Is
make
that where
sense?
like the moon rising and the rising signs and the moon signs and the different houses come into play?
Yeah, I think so. So definitely the sun, moon, and rising. Here's what I say. Okay, here's what I believe. We are all made up of the signs. Okay, I'm a Scorpio sun. You have Scorpio in you. We all have all of the signs within us. Some of
Yeah.
us have those signs to, more exaggerated than other signs, That's definitely where the sun, the moon, and the rising come into play, the big three. Um, you may identify more with your moon sign for some reason and not your sun sign. That's completely fair. The same can go with your rising sign. You may not feel like your rising sign so much, but your moon sign really speaks to you. That makes sense. And the way we can kind of justify that is by looking at a chart and seeing, okay, where is this moon placement? Why do you vibe so much with the moon and not so much with your sun or your rising, so all that, the whole house system, the entire house system really sheds a lot of light as into what we resonate more with, why we resonate with those things, and yeah.
Can you tell us about your signs and a little
Yeah.
bit about how that comes into play with you? I'm really curious as to what you are. I
Okay.
know that I made that guess before, but can you tell me a little bit more about what your signs say about you?
Yeah. So I'm a Sagittarius rising. And so that means Sagittarius is in my first house. But they're the pillars of your life, right? Are the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th houses. Those
Huh.
are the walls of your life, your chart, they provide structure. So those four houses that I named are very important. Again, of course, the rising sign is my first house, but Virgo is my 10th house. My 10th house is like the house of my career, my reputation. It rules what people know me for, and it also rules kind of how I show up to the world, in a different sense from the first house, but
Yeah.
in a sense, kind of like this. Like the 10th house rules your online persona. It rules your how you show up in chat rooms, how you relate to people, especially when it comes to your career or the legacy that you want to leave in this world. So that makes sense that you're picking up Virgo because I'm talking to you through, a screen right now. We're talking
Yeah.
about spirituality, like health, healing, creativity, skill sets. That's all related to Mercury and Virgo. So you're picking up that energy from me. But then
That's
also,
so funny. I think my 10th house is in Mercury as well.
really,
Is that a thing? Is it a planet in the 10th house or is it
so Mercury, for me, Mercury rules Virgo. And so Virgo, because Virgo rules my 10th house, you will have a mercurial influence. I will have that influence on my 10th. But if you have the planet Mercury in your 10th house, that's just as significant. It just kind of shows up in a different way. So if you were to have a planet in your 10th house, planets in your chart, I feel like they're kind of representative of people or events. So you may meet a lot of mercurial people in your life if you have Mercury in your 10th house versus if you have Virgo in your 10th house, your 10th house experience is influenced by like eh, Mercury or Virgo type matters. So let's say, okay, it can be very complicated, but
Yeah.
um,
So I made a
yeah.
mistake though. Mercury's in my 11th.
Okay.
Uranus is in my 10th.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So
So
this,
I know I'm like, well, I was vibing with you there. I thought for sure we were both Mercury in 10, but
maybe someone would relate
wah
to
wah.
that. What sign? Oh, wait, don't tell me. Is it Aquarius or
Am I
Capricorn?
ascending or
In your 10th house. What sign is ruling your 10th house?
in 10th it says Sagittarius,
Mm,
Uranus.
I
Mm.
see.
That,
Okay. So, Uranus in your 10th house, that means that you can come across a lot of unique, out of this world, um, inventive, original, futuristic type of people. in your
Like yourself.
yeah, exactly. And you know, too, Uranus and Aquarius, and the 11th house, they're all kind of related. Those things in astrology relate to astrology. So the 11th house rules astrology. Uranus is forward thinking. Aquarius is mind, very open minded, kind of out of the box thinking. That's why astrology finds its home there. So I'm not surprised if you come across a lot of astrologers or spiritual people, original creative thinkers, in your professional domain, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and Sagittarius ruling the 10th house, that's a very adventurous sign, you know. I think that you find a lot of luck, sticking to dogma, having your set of beliefs and your core values to keep you grounded. But you're even more lucky when you expand your mind. You have your dogmas to guide you, but you don't let your scruples kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't let them stifle you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest journey that I've felt myself on, I resonate with an earth sign with a Capricorn because I'm a workaholic. I don't really know what to do with myself if I'm not working or
Yeah, I hear
creating
you.
or doing a goal. I believe that my ascending sign is in Aquarius and my moon is in Scorpio.
Mm,
So,
that would make
yeah,
sense.
um, moon in ninth house, Pluto, moon, Saturn, Venus, all of that in Scorpio. Um,
Pluto,
which I think is
Moon,
what's that?
Saturn, and Venus in Scorpio?
I'm quite emotional sometimes, but yeah, I'll send you.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is going to go into my next question.
Yeah.
What do you think about like tarot apps and astrology apps and all of it? And what are your takes on the apps versus going to a person? Do you find a benefit to either or?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I mean, I think for me, it helps me, but I don't use it all the time, and I have to be self aware enough to uh, be wary of it if I'm using it too often. I think that I believe in serendipity and I believe in, you know, going on that app and clicking on that, answer or getting that answer from that card right in the moment that you need to hear it. Like, God can talk to you in that way, but I
Yeah.
don't think God will talk to you in that way all the time, every day, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's fine to rely on it, especially like in times of need, but I would take it with a grain of salt, just as with everything, I guess. That's just
Yeah.
me.
One thing I've noticed is that some people, clients in particular, um, I always have to give the caution that it's like I'm almost like a massage, going
Yeah.
to massage therapists and getting the therapy and working through it. That's great a couple of times a week, or however, when you need the therapy. But there's a point where if you're doing it 7 days a week,
Mhm.
every month, every week, every month, every, all the
Mhm.
time throughout a year, uh, I just wonder if you're not getting addicted to being coddled or like if that's just
Right.
not like an addictive repetitive pattern of something that you should be seeking assurance from within and not
Right.
necessarily always having to go outside for
Right.
reassurance, if that makes sense.
Right. I completely agree with that.
Do you ever
Absolutely.
have to cut people off
I
that like any of
have.
your clients that come to you?
Yeah,
Oh man.
I have. I don't want them to grow reliant on me and my answers. Like, I I have to be careful. I want people to think for themselves. I want people to receive the help and then go on their merry way and use it. Like, you can come back, and I do have return customers, but I've definitely had to cut a customer off because they were like coming to me for like tarot readings, astrology readings, like every day, or like, and I don't think that they were in a place where, like, you can come to me like as often as you need. That's great, but like, I just want to believe that you are trying to look to yourself for strength too. I want to provide my clients with the tools that they need to improve their life or see the progress or change they want to see. And I can help them along the way, but I'm just very wary of people coming to me and taking my word as Bible and not thinking for themselves. I
Yeah.
don't want that. That's not the responsibility or the karma that I want.
Absolutely. And I feel like being born under certain stars at a certain time of day only does so much, just like our
Mhm.
bodies only do so much.
Yeah.
So we live within this existence of rules and things, and some can be broken and some really can't. But I think that what it boils down to is you have to, it's your life. You know, it's
Yeah.
your responsibility, your decisions that you make, your choices, and your free will that you can exercise. Yeah, certain things might be set in stone as far as, you know, fate and destiny are concerned, but I feel like there's a fair amount of control that we have,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and we can't really baby people through it.
No, and that's why my approach to astrology. So I don't really like to do predictive astrology. Even for myself, I don't pay attention or follow the transits every day. Like I just don't want to feel dictated by the weather, the astrology weather, and you
Amen.
know, and I don't want my clients to feel the same way, you know. But I mean, sometimes I look into it, especially because, I want to like inform, like if I'm feeling like there's something chaotic going on in the world, or I'm just feeling like tumultuous, like a lot of tumult within myself, maybe I'll be like, okay, what's going on? I'll take a look at the current transits and be like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is how I can get out of it, or this is the remedy for that, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, that. Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Continue. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to
but
interrupt.
in general, I don't like to do predictive astrology. Basically, how I work is I love to look at your birth chart, and I know that you're not beholden to your birth chart. You can change, we all can change. But I look at the birth chart because it's the foundation, and I will tell you what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. This is why you are the way you are. This is the life that you're coming from. This is what you can expect. Here you go. Here's this toolbox. Now, do with it what you will. Like, go
I
be
love that.
awesome. Go forth and be
Yes.
awesome.
Toolboxes. Yes, that's so important. Like,
Yeah.
even when I go to my therapist, you know, it's all about, he's not there to fix my problems. He's
Yeah.
there to give me a toolbox
Yeah.
of healthy coping mechanisms and
Yes.
thought processes and,
Yes.
critical thinking. All of that stuff is there to create a toolbox to help us
Yeah.
solve our own issues.
Yeah.
That leads me into my next question, because you were right on the money. I swear you're going down with my questions, but my next question is, can you explain a retrograde? Can you demystify, like, what is it? People, I mean, I would
Yeah.
swear you would think that it's like an apocalyptic
I
bomb
know.
every time I open my social media and people are like, oh, it's a retrograde, my life is falling apart. And then I look at it and I'm like, wait, my life is kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
Are they on to something? Like, what's going on? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So all planets go retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde. That's the one that we all know about. Venus goes retrograde. Mars, like every planet except the sun or the moon, right? They go retrograde. And retrogrades, and especially Mercury retrograde, because that's the one I think most people know about. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to fear. I like the way that you said apocalyptic event. That's how we treat it. It's really not that way. I think
Yeah.
that we are so resistant to change as like a species, slowing down, and getting out of our routine, getting out of autopilot. And that's why it feels like all hell breaks loose when Mercury goes retrograde. But basically, when planets go retrograde, it's a time to stop and to review what we're doing, to rethink things, to reassess. It's a rewind. And I think that if we think of it that way, it's really not all that bad. Like, we're so
Yeah.
used to going forward, 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 progress. Like, what's the next day going to bring? What are we going to do next? That we don't take time to stop and think about, okay, we've come this far. That's awesome. What worked for me? What didn't work for me? And
Yeah.
what can I take moving forward when this planet finally goes direct? What can I take with me to really cement my progress and see even more beauty in my life? I was actually born under Mercury retrograde, and it's quite common. I believe, is it 3/4 of our population are born under Mercury retrograde? So it's quite a lot of people.
How can that affect your chart or your energy if you're born under a retrograde?
Yeah, so it can be different for different planets, but basically, a retrograde, it pulls the energy within. So when a planet is direct, it's very like yang energy, very yang. So it's extroverted. It's more of a more typically like masculine approach, when it's retrograde, there's like a sense of intuition, a sense of introspection, reflection, rest, receptivity. Okay, so just because a planet is retrograde in your chart doesn't mean it's not working as well. If anything, it's stronger because the energy is like being pulled back and being internalized. When I see a retrograde planet in a chart, I see it as being on the receiving end of that energy or action and also being more potent. Um, yeah. So,
That's really cool. Thank you for
yeah.
explaining that.
Yeah. If someone's born under Mercury retrograde, you know, like I am, speech, might come a little difficult to them. They might not, they might grow up feeling a little insecure about the way they talk or being able to talk like other people. I know for me growing up, one of the things for me was like I was forced to be silent. I grew up in a very strict family. My dad was very strict. I couldn't talk, and even more than that, I had to be really quiet about the things that was going on in my home, things going on in my life. So the less I said, the better, because I wouldn't get in trouble and I wouldn't get my dad in trouble, my family in trouble, like I had to be very private. So
Yeah.
that's one way that Mercury retrograde can manifest. But Mercury retrograde people are also very intuitive. They think so quickly, and they just receive information in a way that Mercury direct people maybe are not able to do as well,
I might have to check and see if I was born under a retrograde because everything that you just described feels like me too.
Yeah. I also wonder where your Mercury is, Ray, because you have a really nice, like soothing but strong voice. I feel like you have a
Oh, thank
really
you.
nice Mercury in like an air sign or maybe in like your first or 10th house or
Uh,
something. I don't know.
it's in my 11th, I
Okay.
believe.
11th
Um, I
in,
just screenshot
is it in
it.
Capricorn?
Yes.
Okay,
I don't
that's
know if
good.
this is going to reflect. I use the CoStar app. I don't
Nice.
know if you can see that.
Aquarius rising, Libra Mars, Hella Scorpio. You have a Sagittarius stellium too. I like your chart.
Thank you. I don't know what that means. And I was thinking too, like if I would have had enough time, I probably would have booked a session with you to get my chart read by you.
Yeah,
But I've been so pressed for time lately.
no problem.
But that being said, I really wanted to go back into because when you were talking about the retrograde stuff, and just I feel like I struggle to speak sometimes
Yeah,
and to communicate.
yeah.
It's definitely one of the most challenging things that I try to actively work on.
It's because
Um,
it's in Capricorn. Your Mercury
oh,
in
okay.
Capricorn, Capricorn slows things down and makes things hard. Capricorn and like Saturn energy is almost like moving through molasses, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. But Capricorn, that's why you talk the way you do. You're very deliberate and intentional with your words and your speech, and that's Saturn energy. So that will help you go really far in life. Capricorn helps you, you know, like
Yeah.
people hate Saturn, but Saturn really like Saturn is the
What they
reason
got
you
against
even have a look.
Saturn? Oh my God.
Huh?
Why do people hate
Hate Saturn?
Saturn?
Saturn is like
So pretty.
the taskmaster, you know, in
Oh
astrology.
yeah, that's me.
Saturn, yeah, people. Saturn rules karma, you know, and people don't like things like that. People don't want restriction. People don't want punishment. You know, people, you know, but it's actually.
Zach, she's talking about. I feel I trust me, and I'm so self-aware. But when Taskmaster Ray comes out, and I'm like, "Did you do X, Y, and Z? Did we do this, this, and this? Did
Yeah.
you? I specifically told you this, this, and this, and then you went around that way." And I
Mm-hmm.
feel terrible because it's like no being aware of your own. I feel like it's a strength, but
It
also it can be a
is.
fault to some people. You know, because I don't want to be
Yeah.
abrasive to people, but
Absolutely. I think, you
definitely
know,
come across that way sometimes.
yeah, and that's your journey to kind of find that balance between, you know, not being too hard on people and yourself too. I'm sure you're hard on yourself too.
Yeah.
Not being too hard
Oh
on your
yeah.
people and on people and yourself, but also it's your journey. It's your purpose in this life to again be that pillar for people and help structure their life. Capricorn naturally rules the 10th house, and the 10th house, like I was saying, along with the first, fourth, and seventh houses are the pillars of our life. You know, they help create that structure so that we can grow. We need that Capricorn energy, and I think that in the end people are usually grateful for your you kind of guiding them and telling them, okay, this needs to be this way, etc. And if you ever feel like weird or insecure about it, just take a job where you have to tell people what to do. Make money off of it. People will be grateful for it, you know, and leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, be an event planner or
Totally.
something, or a director. Like, these people need help.
Heathens, girl. They're heathens. Well, that's really cool. So, do you have any projects coming up, or have you thought about writing a book or authoring anything, or
That
what
is
do you have going
so
on?
crazy that you say that. I have thought of writing my experiences down. I've lived a crazy life. I've lived through a lot, and I feel like I need to start writing them down, and maybe compile them into a book one day because I think maybe some people could benefit to, you know, hear what I went through and maybe find some healing in it or feel like they're not alone. Um, but yeah, I just don't want to forget what I went through and I want to record it. I keep wanting to write more for astrology, but I feel I haven't really been inspired. I'm motivated by inspiration. I feel like if I
Yeah.
have a thing where I'm like I'm going to put out a TikTok every day, I'm going to hate it so much. That's just not how I
Yeah.
work. So
Yeah.
I make content, I write when I'm inspired. Not to say I don't have a ton of ideas. I have a ton of ideas. I have a ton of drafts. You know, I just haven't
Yeah.
really acted on it yet because it didn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? That one
Yeah.
thing, that one TikTok I made of like with Justin and Selena and their synastry, I woke up at like 5 a.m., maybe a little before then, just all of a sudden was like, I need to do a synastry reading on them. You know, I don't care for celebrities. I really don't. I personally don't care for Justin. I don't care for Selena. I don't care. But I was like, let me make this, and I loved it. It was fun. It worked out, and I was just like, you know what? Let me just like do celebrity synastry. So I'm just kind of
I
taking
love
life
that, and
as it comes.
I absolutely support that. I think that you should continue to do that because it's a healthy entertainment to
Yes.
other people, but also I think it can be a learning tool because
Yeah.
how many people can't find something relatable, you know, in public figures,
Mhm.
you know, and especially when it's dumbed down to like the basic instinct of like scorned lover, scorned heart,
Yeah.
feeling cheated on, or feeling loved, feeling praised, feeling uplifted. You can see the mirror in almost anything. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's kind of like social media therapy for people.
Yes.
They can look at something and be like, oh, my life's not that bad. Or they can look at it and be like, oh, I remember being in that situation. Thank God I got out of that situation because I
Yes.
learned XYZ. I think it could be a cool learning tool.
Yeah.
It's not all garbage and frivolous, I don't think.
I don't think
You just
so.
got to find the right algorithm. I don't like how the algorithms can be super manipulative to us. I hate it,
I don't
but
even know what's going on. Like, I don't know. So, kind of like, I'm just curious. I feel like even really big accounts lately, like if I look at their most recent videos from like the past month or so, I feel like they're getting relatively fewer views than like I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's because so many people are using TikTok now and are creating content more than consuming it. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like even
I think
though,
it has something to do with data collection. I think that they're collecting data and then they're kind of playing around with different algorithms, but I also feel like it's going to sound really out there, but I feel like they're trying to find a new way to manipulate
I
people.
hear you. Yeah.
What because I've seen like the social dilemma
Oh,
documentary,
yeah.
and I've seen how Meta and a lot of these companies work to collect data and then basically try to keep you engaged on those apps. That's
Yeah.
why I try to provide entertaining but educational content on my platforms now, because I feel like you can't go wrong with it. The right people will find you and they'll stick with you. And yeah, there's a million other people who are into crystals
Yeah.
and do cards and whatever, but they don't have my voice, just like they don't
Yes.
have yours. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
And so what if I only have 4 subscribers on my podcast right now? I know that in a year from now, there are going to be so many people finding this and so grateful that they did, because what you and I share is transcendent through time.
Absolutely. Focused on the long term, the legacy, not just this
Mm-hmm.
quick success, which we can succeed quickly, but we'll have to compromise what our integrity. I'll have to be a slave
Absolutely.
to this
Yeah.
app or to the algorithm. I'm not being no slave
Or
for
to the
anything. You know
content.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I think you're on the right track. I'm on the right track as long as I'm following my heart and yeah,
Yes.
that's I feel like that's
We
part of the
got
purpose.
we got this. So then, do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you would like to leave any of our listeners, anybody that discovers you today and discovers the magic of you? Do you have any words of wisdom to share?
Oh, I love that. Yes. So I am really big on manifesting and especially manifesting through speech. Speech is very important to me. And I believe that I always say this, there's power in the tongue. What you say, what you spell can add to or detract from your life and the lives of others, the lives of those you're speaking to. I think
Yes.
that when people come into contact with me, they realize how positive I try to be with my speech, um, and how important it is in uplifting people and raising their vibe and just adding beauty to the world. I just want people to remember to just speak kindly to yourself today, you know? Just be kind to yourself. Say positive things about yourself. Just one thing positive that you like about yourself today or that you're happy with. Um, and go from there, you know? You don't have to I think that when you speak positively about yourself, it will naturally overflow and you'll be able to share that same beauty of speech with the world around you, with your environment, with your plants, with your pets, and with your friends and family, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just
Well, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. Thank
And thank you
you.
for being here. This was a long time coming, because I've been trying to brainstorm and create this podcast for like over the last year.
Yeah.
And when Zach and I met you
Hmm.
that day, I remember leaving your energy and just being like, man, she's so cool. Like, I hope I get to interview her one day for my podcast. And, it was still just like a seedling. And now to actually happen, I told him this morning, I was like, I feel very, very accomplished for myself, because I feel like a lot of the people that I'm starting to interview for this podcast, it's very humble and it's in its beginning phase, but I'm getting the people I want to talk to, like yourself, and different authors that I'm getting to interview. And so it feels so good. So thank you for being a part of this for me, and for being so generous with your information and your energy.
Ray, I love your energy. I have very high hopes for you, and anything you put your
Thank
voice
you.
in, I will co-sign on that. I have such faith in you and your voice. I would love to do this with you again. I feel like we can just talk forever. I love your mind and what you have
Totally.
to say. So, yeah. And there are even things that I wanted to say that, like, we'll just have to say for another time. But,
Yes, my platform is your platform. We can always do a part two. We can
yeah.
also do like a celebrity deep dive. I would
I
love
would
to do
love
it with
that. I
Synastry.
brought tarot
That'd be
cards
really
with
cool.
me just in case it came up. We can do like a tarot reading next time or something, because you read tarot
Yeah.
too, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We should do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it here, but please stay on so we
Thank
can
you all
chat
so
a
much
little
for
bit.
checking out my podcast. Special thanks to Princess Stella, owner of StellaLoveAstrology.com. Be sure to check out her website and social media links for all sorts of fantastic knowledge, education, and services such as tarot and astrology. If you guys enjoyed today's podcast, please give me a like, give me a comment, give me a glowing review. It really would help me out a lot, and it would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, Woo family.